So good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here with us today. We had about 100 people register for the webinar on Zoom and hope to have that number increase via Facebook. The last 2 weeks, we've had over 4,000 people that have tuned into these webinars, and we're excited to expand that number. Today, Courtney and I are going to co-host this event, and yeah, we hope it's a great time. We're going to start with a video and hope that everybody is able to enjoy this.
All Black Lives Matter.
All right, good.
What?
I'm kind.
Kind.
And important.
Important. I am smart. I matter. My life matters. Black lives matter.
On three. Go.
Black minds matter.
Black.
I am not only beautiful, but I am smart, intelligent, and kind. And my family is always by my side. I feel like I'm crying right now. Those are happy tears though.
My life matters and Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter. I am really happy that I am Black because then if Black Lives Matter, I matter.
Say, I'm handsome. I'm strong.
I am Black and I am confident. I am much more than the initial assumptions that others make about me.
I have to be Black because we earn everything we get. We don't have privilege, so we don't get it the easy way. We have to fight for it.
Life matter.
Because how unique we are, and yeah, Black Lives Matter. We're unique. All the qualities too that we have.
I am proud of being Black because I am different, which makes me special. I like about my hair is because it's different. It might be poofy and not straight and flowing like the other girls, but I like it just the way it is. Well, I'm proud of myself of having poofy hair. I don't care what people think of my skin color. I'm like a banana. And the outside, we're all different. Some of us can be bruised, some of us can be green, some of us can be split, some of us cannot be easy to open. Anyway, in the inside of the banana, we're all the same. Delicious and same flavor. How I make the world better? Well, we can all make the world better. It isn't just me. You can stay home and take care of each other. Don't judge people of their skin color. Treat people how you want to be treated.
All right. Well, I might be a little bit biased, but I think my goddaughter is the best. But yes, we hit a little bit on last week on how do you talk to your children about racism, and though it can be a really tough conversation, you can always start with positive affirmations and then being able to uplift themselves, but uplift the other children around them. So speaking of the youth, we want to introduce our first speaker who does a lot of motivational speaking to uplift inner city youth. So we have Conrad Cowell, who has using his past from being in gangs and drug dealings to using that and really switching it around to motivate the communities in the inner cities. So Conrad, I'm excited for you to speak, and yeah, take it away.
Well, good morning, everyone. How you doing? Well, I watched that video, and I watched it yesterday, looking at it. And it reminded me of an event that I just went to last weekend. And it was a 1-year-old's birthday party. Now, typically 1-year-olds don't remember birthday parties, so I always say that's for the parents. But this particular birthday party, the child is mixed. The mother is white, the father is black. And I went to this event, and there were white people, black people, like there were just a hue of color there. And it amazed me at that moment that I realized that this is a normal for this child to see this. This child sees these different races of people, but in this child's mind, it just see people that care. It doesn't see the color. The child doesn't see the different racial views that the people there may have. This child just see people that's coming to gather around that child out of love. To me, that's the ideal of what we should be as a society, is that we can embrace a young child. And that's what that was. That was us embracing a young child and paying attention to that child's growth, that child's progress, and that child becoming an adult. But he needs to be around that type of love. And this is what our community needs, that type of love. I happen to have a biracial niece in our family. And I can remember us going to my brother's wedding. When he got married, it was like separatism. You can see it in the what do we have when you have the reception? It was whites on one side and blacks on the other side. This is literally what it was like at this marriage reception that my brother had when he got married to his wife. But during the course of the event, when the music started, the food came, everybody began to come together. And we realized we were there for a common purpose, to celebrate the joining of two people. We should always learn how to come for a common purpose. And I think that's what's going on today with white people getting involved with the, Black Lives Matter. My one issue that I have with the Black Lives Matter, and it's a beautiful cause, I just don't want to see us getting to a place where we're coming together when we see racism with our police system. But we have a young man was just killed 2 days ago here in Detroit. There was another shooting in Grand Rapids last week. And the problem is we're looking at the police issues and not realizing that we're killing each other on a daily basis. Like, where is the uproar? Where we really need to stand up and say, it's not just police that's killing us, we're killing us. We need to step up with that same type of aggression, that same type of passion when a shooting just happened last night. We need to step up with that same type, let's get together, let's argue, let's try to make a change. But the minute an officer does it, and these are not everyday occurrences. They're sad occurrences, but they're not everyday occurrences. Everyday occurrences is us killing each other in these streets. This is when we need to really come together if we want to see real change. Let's not just come together because a white racist police officer or whatever did something to harm one of us. That's sad. Yes, it is. But it's even more sad when Junior just shot someone his own age. And we turn a blind eye to it and we don't argue like, oh, well, that's just what happens in our community. The same passion needs to be there. And that's the only way we really want. We can't just pick and choose the plight. We got to understand that this is a plight, period, of us dying. African-American young men are the highest rate of deaths amongst humans here in America through gun violence. This is a sad thing. This is what we need to uproar about. This is what we need to march about. Not just when an officer does it, but when we do it. That's the sad part about us as a community. And that collective work of responsibility, us coming together, that's beautiful. But we need to know how to come together, when to come together, and not pick and choose moments to come together. So that's my issue with this whole thing. I would love to see more passion. I was just as passionate when I heard about the shooting as I was when I heard about Floyd getting strangled. And it's sad that we tend to forget that because we've been so desensitized by it. We've been so numb to it to where it's not even a reaction anymore when it happens, when we read it, when we look at the news. For most people, it's not even a reaction anymore because you're so used to it. We're so used to this type of violence to where when we do see something that's kind of outlandish with an officer doing it, it gets our attention. But the fact that it goes on repeatedly should get our attention even more. So this is one of the reasons why when I moved here from Grand Rapids, when I moved to Grand Rapids from Detroit, which are really where I was from, and this was after I've been incarcerated for almost 30 years. I got out, I began to do work for Detroit in the city. I worked with city council members, worked with police officers, moved here to Grand Rapids with my pastor, Pastor Gary Hankins of Resurrection Fellowship Church. Amazing man of God. And what inspired me about him is that he's very family-oriented, community-oriented, and he learns how to step up in all situations that needs that attention. And for me, that was impressive. I seen the work that he was doing. And I've been under him for going on 14 years now. And he's been one of the most inspirational people in my life. And he gives me that drive to want to see change. He challenges me. And we need more people like that in the community who challenges you to your best, to see your potential and learn how to nurture it. And that's needed in our community, which is one of the reasons why I did start Resurrection Back to Life, which is a nonprofit organization that helps returning citizens with employment opportunities. And I'm transitioning into housing because I see that's a need here also in Grand Rapids, to have good housing for returning citizens. We have places like Mel Trotter and Dagger, and they're good places, but we need positive environments for returning citizens to help them really focus on reaching their full potential. So hopefully somebody can hear the words I'm saying and be more passionate about the problems that we're facing in our communities, not just with officers, but with each other.
Well, thank you, Conrad. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Conrad. That was really good to hear. So I would like to introduce our next panelist, and that is Eric Freeman. Eric is the founder of Mindset Meals. His inspiration behind this organization that he started is he had some struggles going on in his life that led down to a dark path. He pretty much found that healthy lifestyle and healthy eating had kind of helped turn him around in a mental, transformation. Eric is serving right now just to try to make the world a better place. And thanks for being here, Eric.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Courtney and Sarah, for making this happen. Conrad, thank you. Thank you for saying what you said. I definitely agree with you. I was in a dark place mentally, and I think you're right. I think we need to work on ourselves too. It's not just them, right? We need to work on us. I guess I kind of go into a little bit of my background and my story and being Hispanic and Black and not feeling welcome. And my mom was born in Cuba and came to the United States in the early 70s, I believe. And my mom at 21, she started dating my father, who is African-American male here, and he's from the east side of the state, and he was going to Grand Rapids Community College, and that's how my mom met him. And my mom started dating him, and she got kicked out of the family for having, for dating a African-American. And by the way, mind you, the other side of my family is Cuban, right? So it's not just white people being racist. It's a lot of people are racist. And so she got kicked out of the family for 2 years. She still struggles with it today. She doesn't talk much about it. We didn't talk much about feelings growing up. Ousted out of the family. Growing up, I was never white enough for my white friends, Hispanic enough for my Hispanic friends and family, or Black enough for my Black family and friends, right? So I was never really accepted. And then you go to my dad living on the east side of the state, and not really having a father figure in my life, and that whole sob story about how black young men don't have fathers, and that obviously played a big factor in the negative aspect of my life. I actually found, I guess, structure in sports growing up. I got into sports when I was probably in middle school heavily, and I found structure in sports. So that helped me out a lot. I went to a predominantly white high school. I went to Wyoming Park in 2004 to 2007. It was pretty white. Now it's Wyoming and it's beautiful. It's brown, black, white, everyone's there. But not when I was going there. And I had about 4 best friends, I could say, and 2 of them were white, Casey and Ryan, and 2 of them were brown. And after high school, I was a preferred walk-on at Michigan State University for football, but I didn't think I was ready to play with the big boys. And right there I lost, because mentally, right then and there I lost, because mentally I didn't think I was ready for them. So I definitely would have got killed if I got on the field with them. So I ended up going to CC, and I think 6 months into CC, me and Casey and Ryan, my 2 Caucasian buddies, we went to a bar and had a great time in the bar. And after the bar, we were approached aggressively by a very drunk individual, and we got into a fight. And unfortunately, that person, the people who we were fighting, one of the person went into a coma, and he ended up passing away, right? So I think it was, I don't know, maybe 9 months, they were trying to build a case. Casey and Ryan, who I was with Casey and Ryan, and they took a plea deal to manslaughter. And for some reason, I was portrayed as the big bad wolf in this case. And I did play the victim role in this for a long time in my life. And I just want everybody to know I don't play the victim role in that space anymore. But I was portrayed as the big bad wolf in this situation. And I remember one of the first times I recognized this is when we were on the news, and there was a group of Hispanic males who had an altercation with the same group of people we did after we left, right? And we didn't see that altercation. We had our altercation, we left, they came, they had our altercation, right? When the news put Casey and Ryan at the bottom of the screen, and then they put me with the Hispanic guys up top, I knew there was going to be an issue. And I was 18 years old when that happened. And that's when I lost respect for the media. And I knew something wasn't right. So Casey and Ryan took a plea deal to manslaughter, and I took it to trial. At 18 years old, my lawyer said, if you lose, I was facing second-degree murder at this point. Now it's not a game. Now it's not manslaughter anymore. Now you're facing second-degree murder. If you want to take it to trial, we're going to hit you with second-degree murder. At 18 years old, hearing that, you just get numb, right? You're just numb. And my lawyer said, if you lose this case, Eric, you're going to do, the minimum you'll do is 15 years in prison. And I was like, let's go. Let's take it to trial. And we took it to trial. And my family and I thought that the trial was going in our favor until so how it works is that the closing, the prosecutor gets to go, your defense lawyer, you get to go, and then the prosecutor for some reason gets to go again, right? So the last thing the jury hears is what the prosecutor says. And the prosecutor was a very, very, very good prosecutor. I have respect for him. I speak to him now. I've spoken to him. And he said, maybe Eric Freeman didn't assault the victim that died, but he threw in aiding and abetting, right? So I went from, okay, we're good, I thought we were going to be okay, to instantly knowing I was going to prison right away. By the way, it's supposed to be a jury of your peers. I think there was one brown person in my jury. So when I looked over to the right, all I seen was people that didn't look like me. Like I said, I played the victim role in that space for a long time, and I finally got into a better mindset. And what helped me was food, eating better and being healthier, and that put me in a better mindset. So I think it's important that, like Conrad said, that we focus on ourselves and not play the victim role in our lives. And listen, if we're getting the opportunity to finally be heard, and people are giving us the opportunity to be equal, I don't want us to mess that up. So just to piggyback off of what Conrad was saying, we need to work on ourselves too. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Eric, for sharing that. I feel like I could have listened to you keep talking on that. You can hear that passion. You definitely need to have your story. I kept finding myself nodding, like, oh man, just that's tough to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing
Yeah,
that.
absolutely, for sure. Thank you for doing this.
Okay, so our next panelist is Chris Sane. Chris is a former Michigan State University athlete. He is an author of a book called Dumb Athlete. He has his master's degree and he works with community college. He's a motivational speaker, serves on several boards in the community, and thanks for being here, Chris.
Once again, Sarah, thanks for having me. Courtney, thanks for having me. Mix, thanks for doing this. Salute, Conrad. Major salute, Eric. Thank you guys for sharing your story. I guess I'll begin because I have a wide spectrum in which I can come at this at. I come from a two-parent household, but unfortunately, sometimes there's this misconception because you have two parents in a household that you don't go through things that maybe the single parent household goes through. In no way am I trying to compare the struggle, but I had one brother that went to prison for 25 years, but I ended up getting my master's degree by the time I was 24. So I often get asked the question, how could two people from the same house go down two different paths? And for myself, everything came down to choice decisions that we made along our journey. I spent, if you guys know anything about my story, sports is at the core of who I am, but I spent my childhood in Michigan Department of Corrections visiting my brother because he and I were close. And as a result of our connectedness and constantly forfeiting the things that normal kids do, two things came out of that. Two things was birthed. I had a burning desire to make something of myself. I knew that I wasn't going to let the penal system capture my life. However, I had a brother on the flip end that I saw so many strides that he had made throughout his time in there that I was so eager to be in position to be of support, as well as be in position to help his transition back to society. And so out of the 25 years, he ended up serving 19 before he was eventually released. And he and I today, we speak in prisons regularly. And so when I come from this mayhem that's happening in our country right now, I've seen both sides of it. I've been in the system as a family member of a person that has served over a decade, but as opposed to continuing the cycle of being part of the problem, he and I both have dedicated our lives to being part of the solution. And so we've counteracted those things by working with law enforcement, by going into the prisons and talking to inmates, whether you're a lifer, whether you got the chance to come home at some point. And one thing that I can attest to is that we all have a role to play in the change that we want to see. And so for myself, I like to be solution oriented in all that I do. And so I come before you today, although I'm wearing many hats, I want to put on the hat of solutions for how we can move our community forward, our country forward, as well as I want to help white people get a firmer understanding on things that they can do during this time. Because one thing that has emerged from all of this, from my neighbors to some of you guys know and love in our community that are white, they've all reached out on some level. And the number one thing that I'm hearing is they say, Chris, this feels different. Chris, this feels different. Something about this feels different is the one thing I'm hearing. And the second thing they all have said to me is, Chris, I'm fearful. I'm afraid. And so it made me kind of think. I said, you know what? Let me think about what are my brothers and sisters, because I see us all as family. I don't care about what your color is. What are they fearful of? And how could I help unpack what this perceived fear that they have. And so I've been going door to door and talking to my brothers and sisters, and two things emerged. One of the things that they said that I think we all can help with is this. They said, Chris, the way Black and brown people has been perpetuated on the media, the stereotype that has been cast about you guys in the media, they said, even though we know you, there's still times that we don't feel safe around you. I can't lie and say I wasn't taken aback by that, because I think of myself as a non-threatening individual, loving, go out my way for anybody. But that made me say, and I think Eric said this too, it made me see the power that the media has in portraying images of Black and brown people. And I often say the media doesn't go out their way to show you images of a Dr. Pink. They don't go out their way to show you what's really possible. And so images that do exist are far few in between. And so one thing that I said to myself, I'm hoping that this fear that white people are feeling is not one in which their way of life in some way will be interrupted. Because if seeing Black people be oppressed, if seeing Black people overcome being oppressed is something that you're fearful about, then that's a whole nother conversation that we need to have and address in and of itself. Everyone needs to be treated equally. Everyone deserves to be treated fairly. Everyone deserves to have the same opportunities, especially based on merit. And so this level of fearfulness that is persisting, not only in our police force and among our white counterparts, I think that has to be addressed, and they have to be willing to not only listen, but take necessary actions towards addressing what that root cause of that fear is.
Thanks, Chris. So I think your voice is very well respected, and yeah, we appreciate your input and feedback on that. Our next speaker is Marquise Turley. Marquise and I actually went to high school together. He grew up on Bemis Street, and a lot of what he knew was poverty and basketball. He was taken in by a woman who he played AAU with her son, and really wasn't predicted to succeed. If you went to otis.com and put the last name Turley in, you would see that the system already failed him. He has his master's degree and is currently employed at Coca-Cola. So thanks for being here, Marquise.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Courtney, for having me today. I just want to say thank you, Eric. Thank you, Conrad. Thank you, Chris. Also Dr. Pink for being on the panel. But I don't really know how to give it to you guys any other way. So I'm going to have to give it to you guys a little uncut and raw. So that's kind of where I'm from. So I'm just speaking for, not only the Blacks here within West Michigan, but I'm speaking for the Blacks here within the streets of Franklin and Eastern, within the streets of Bemis and Fuller, Burton and Eastern, and so on. But I'm also speaking for corporate America, our young growing corporate America too, because I've been in both worlds. So I kind of know, what's the flavor and what's, the room, what's the temperature in the room. So first I would say, if you're silent, you are complacent. Being silent is half the problem. If you're not ready to have tough discussions, you're half the problem. Systematic racism has killed me for years. If you Google the last name Turley in the Otis system, I'm already in there. I'm already a product of systematic racism. I'm already discriminated against. I'm already predetermined. I'm already prejudged. When an officer pulls me over, his last name is Turley. I already have the long history of what's going on, throughout our community here in West Michigan. So I'm very passionate about this because, you know what I mean, I do live in the lives of other. I am very close to tell me, I mean, some white prominent people here in West Michigan. And I think for my kind, I would ask all blacks to say all whites aren't racist, but you rather judge by your mind and heart. So for me, I look at it as if we can all have a voice, then we can all make change. Working at Amway, working at Coca-Cola, I truly understand that we can't have change with all white Caucasians sitting at the boardroom meetings, with having one black in the boardroom. I'm able to share this story because I was in both worlds. I worked at Amway. Now I'm working at Coca-Cola. So I see who's making the change. I see who's leading these prominent discussions. As African Americans, we're sick of going out to Meyer. We're sick of going out to Amway. We're sick of going out to Steelcase. We're sick of going out to Herman Miller. Let's bring these meetings to Franklin and Eastern. Let's bring these meetings to the Urban League. Like, let's get people involved who aren't as educated as me. Let's get people involved who are facing these day-to-day issues so we can make a change. And for me, it's like, I share a story about finance. If you know African Americans, one thing we pride ourselves on is trying to build wealth. But we cannot build financially stable wealth without understanding the financial literacy, the things that we haven't been taught for years, the things that we have been put off to the back burner from years. So now we have a voice. So now it's time for us to face these tough decisions with our loved ones, with our close knitted individuals. So for me, I'm going to start with my godmom. I'm going to start with her kids. They're close to me. So it's time for me to start having these tough discussions with them. Because if we can make a change as a family, and I can make a change with my immediate family, then that's when we can kind of dig into the roots of how do we make a change for West Michigan. I love the big platform, but I think we're here to reform West Michigan. And our biggest quest is, how can we make a difference here within West Michigan? So all of us on this panel, we're living in the day-to-day action here within West Michigan. And I think not only from the police brutality, from the police issues, from the financial issues, to so on. I mean, there's many different issues that we need to attack, but I think it's time for us and all of our leaders to start bringing these meetings to Franklin and Eastern. Let's start bringing these meetings to the city. We're tired. We sat in your boardroom meeting for too many years. It's time for us, for you guys to sit in where we're at. Like, let's feel the impact that I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis. You know what I mean? Because I'm able to speak from the streets of Grand Rapids, and I'm able to speak from the corporate America. And the disparity in between both of those is huge. And I would tell you guys, if you don't have a voice, you're complacent and you're half the problem. So that's kind of the story that I share, and you know what I mean, and so on. And I went to Catholic Central. So I'm able to understand the huge racial disparities and financial gaps, education gaps, privilege, white privilege, and so on. So I would just say, let's really focus on how to make change. And thank you for having me, Sarah and Courtney.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that, Marquise. And just like Sarah said, I was nodding my head, and I really appreciate you being willing to, not censor yourself and be your authentic self and be honest with community, because that's what they need to hear. So lastly, we would like to introduce our last speaker, Dr. Bill Pink. And I don't want to get into too big of an introduction, but I heard him speak at the Grand Rapids Young Professionals of Color Conference, and I left feeling super motivated. So I'm sure you guys are going to feel the same way too. So we are excited to hear from you, Dr. Pink.
Courtney and Sarah, thank you. I'm hopeful that my connection is good. Time to time, I'm here on campus. Every once in a while, it doesn't like to cooperate. So I'm hopeful that it will be good. I want to say to Conrad, Eric, Chris, and Marquise, thank you, brothers, for your words, and thank you for your hearts, and thank you for your honesty. Some of with our stories, when we tell our stories, what's refreshing is when we are on this side of our story and where we are right now, realizing at the same time, so many of our brothers who look like us are not at this point in that story, and they are in the midst of some of the things that you great men have talked about today, of some of those dark days, as it was said. And so, keeping in mind that we are at a great place, and still a whole lot of work to do. I will, and Sarah and Courtney, thank you for the honor to be able to spend time. I'll be quick in a little bit of background. So my life in growing up in small town Texas, grew up with five kids in the house. Have 4 siblings. I'm the youngest. My mom and dad, we all 7 of us lived with my grandmother in a 2-bedroom house, and one of the bedrooms was hers. And so what that meant to us was getting to know your brothers and sisters really good. And so we grew up there in small town Texas. And in the 70s and 80s, small town Texas, you can imagine some of what we may have experienced. Our neighborhood was common to, out our front door, if you would look to the left, you had a house there that was known for drug sales. And so on Friday nights, Saturday nights, you saw it. I grew up watching that over to my left. And to my right, this house was known for alcohol sales. And at that point in our city, that was not legal. And so, but Friday night, Saturday night, you saw that. And so that meant that on a typical Friday night, Saturday night, our street was packed with cars, and none of them were coming to our house to visit. They were all going over there. They were all going over there. And my dad was one who was a World War II veteran. And the shotgun that he had in that house was a long shotgun. And it was one of those that we wanted to make sure if I came in late at night and had to knock on the door after going to hang out with my buddies or whatever, if that barrel of that gun came out the door, you yell, "Dad, Daddy, it's me. Because you didn't ever know if that World War II shotgun was truly going to work correctly. However, growing up in that setting, what we saw, what was so good for me as the youngest of 5, growing up in that setting, in that poverty area of how we grew up, we never knew that we were in poverty because I had people in my house, my mom and dad, who my mom worked at night, my dad worked in the day, so that someone was always at the house. And I remember one time sneaking and looking at my mom's pay stub and seeing that what her pay was, and I thought, oh my goodness, my mom is rich. She's making about $190 every 2 weeks. Man, she's got a lot of money. Not really realizing and having the good concept of what that meant in raising 5 kids in a 7-8 person household. And so the thing about it is that what I learned growing up is that no matter what you plan, except at least in my life, the way it manifested for me, is that wherever I planned, whatever I said, this is what I want to do, whatever that was, there's always people that are willing to help you get there. Whether it be that I want to go over here and do some things I know I shouldn't be doing, I always had some buddies who were going to be willing to help me go over there and do what I wanted to do. Or for me, basketball was what got me through high school and college as far as my education and motivation. There were always people in my life who, because I said, I want to play college basketball, I want to get an education, there were always people that would help me get there as well. It was a matter of pulling upon my resources, recruiting my resources, and to have been blessed to been able to get to the place that I was able to get to, blessed to be able to figure out how to put a big orange ball into a hoop. That was a God-given blessing for me, but also people that I believe strongly that were there in case I said that's what I want to do. Those people were there to say, how do we help you get there? And so for me, when I think about that upbringing, what I say, the reason why I am blessed to be where I am and what I am doing right now at this point in my life is and it's so funny listening to Eric and Conrad and Chris and Marquise talk about, it's like we didn't even trade notes, because what I wanted to emphasize is the importance of our people paying attention to how we pull upon each other and help each other, and not be the heel biters to bring each other down. I'm just gonna be frank. Sometimes we can do that to each other, that we sometimes don't like to see our brother get up and be able to make something of him, or our sister make something of herself, that we sometimes like to grab the heels and bring them back down just because we're not up there. That's something that we have to stop in our community, that we have to see how I can push you up so that you are able to be successful in whatever that venture is you do. Because again, someone's always there to help you, no matter what direction you're gonna go. And so for me, it is important that as a community college, as this community college's president, I feel like I have a tool. And I believe it's that tool of education. I have a tool that I can help deliver, that I can actually, during this, as I say, my window being open, this window of opportunity, this window of influence in a community, how can I help our people? How can I help the people of Grand Rapids? But in this case, how can I help young men and women who look like I do? How can I help give them this tool and make this tool available, accessible? And it's not just about access in terms of getting to the place, it's access to finishing at this place. And so for me, that is why being a community college president at this point where God has me, and I'm a deep believer, he has me in a place at a time for a specific purpose. And sometimes that purpose changes, and I will tell you, it morphed a bit these last 3 weeks of that purpose. But what happens is that I now have this tool that God has blessed me to be in charge of, that I can now say, how do we help in helping our people of color and others, but in this, people of color, be able to be successful in this regard? Because I believe education is a huge, huge key to what we can do for ourselves and what we can do for each other.
Wow, thank you. Again, thank you so much. Just like you said, I feel like everybody's conversations tied in together very well and hit on a lot of really important aspects. So thank you again, Dr. Pink, and thank you to Marquise, Chris, Eric, Conrad. We really appreciate it. So we're gonna get into our Q&A. If you're watching on Facebook, feel free to put them in the comments. If you wish for it to be anonymous, you can send it directly to our page. If you're watching via Zoom, you can add those into the Q&A as well. So hopefully you guys can see me now. But we did get a really good question that came in. And if you guys wanted to, if you wanted to jump in just a couple sentences here and there, anybody can answer. So we have someone who said, I know there's a difference between being not racist and being anti-racist, but my question is, what do you do when someone is set in their ways and it feels like no matter what you say, they're viewpoints won't change? Is there even a point to talk to those people?
I'll go on that. I think it's the problem is, yes, there's a point to talk to them. If you don't talk, once again, if you're silent, then you're complacent. Then you agree to what they say is okay. Things can't be agreeable anymore. We must have these tough discussions. That's how we start dialogue. Having a tough discussion is hard for not only myself, but for that individual too. So I think it's important for you to continue to talk to them and try to find a way to, you know what I mean, maybe just move the needle just a little bit. You know what I mean? You're never going to hit a home run, but in instance, I think moving the needle and getting the first base, I think that's a starting point. You know what I mean? And then they can start to see different.
I would also, in adding to what Marquise said, I think one of the I think it's a mistake that we sometimes make is that we never establish what common ground is. So to establish the things that we agree on, let's figure that out first. What I have found in my relationships, and it doesn't matter if it's a friendship or marriage, whatever, when we are able to figure out the things that we agree on, it typically makes it easier to talk about the things that we don't agree on. But when we are so focused on always, well, let's talk about, because to get to where what Marquise is talking about is where I want to get to. And the way I feel I get to that is by us being able to say, well, let's talk about what we do see. What are the common things that we have here? I will tell you, I learned this lesson from my 17-year-old daughter, because she told me a few weeks ago, she was talking about her best friend, and her best friend, they have this disagreement on this certain topic. And I mean, they are just, I mean, they're always together. They just love hanging out, but they disagree sharply on this. I said, well, what are you doing about that, sweetie? This particular topic, it's not even this one. What are you doing about that, sweetie? She said, Dad, we don't talk about that as much anymore, because I have found out that that's where she stands. That's where she is. And it's something that isn't something that compromises moral, as far as relationship. Now, if it's something that has that compromises, I get it. You guys sometimes say, okay, we got to do something here. But to get to that point where you establish the common ground, it makes the ground so much more fertile for the harder conversations that, as we've heard today, need to happen.
If I can add very briefly, and just piggybacking on what the doctor just spoke about, I've done almost 30 years in prison. You don't get to pick your roommates. You don't go to say, hey, I want to live with this person because, they have a good FICO score, and you don't pick that. You have to get who they put in there. So I've roomed with true Aryan Nation, straight racists. Was my roommate for over a year. We don't agree. But here's the beauty about respecting people's belief systems. I can't change his mind. He's not going to change my mind. But that common ground, we have to be in a room together. We have to coexist. So that's our common ground. So whatever you don't like about Black people, too bad. We got to be in a room together. So we have to find that common ground. And that's the same thing today. You're dealing with a person, according to that question, they're in their 80s. They're stuck in their ways. You can do what you can do and voice your opinion, but at the end of the day, they have to make their own choice. This is America. They have that choice. I can care less if somebody's racist. Respect me. I respect you. It's that simple. And we can find that common ground, and we can always coexist with each other. We just don't have to agree. And we just learn to respect each other.
Thank you for that, Conrad. And I want to get to a next question, and I feel like potentially Eric and Chris can get on this, being business owners. We have two people with similar questions. They would just like to know, for employers, what can they do to address issues of race, diversity, and their stances on Black Lives Matter with their companies and the people who they serve?
I'll jump on this one really quick. I would just say, listen,
And I truly believe listening is a skill. I'm 31 years old and I just started listening 2 years ago. So listening is a skill. So I would say truly listen, and then go from there. I think that the common ground thing fits into this as well. Like find that common ground, listen and learn. That's the best advice I have, is just listening, truly listening.
Piggybacking off of Eric, I would say don't let DEI, don't let diversity, equity, inclusion just be a buzzword in the workspace. In addition to what Eric said, with listening, be about action too. Even employers that might be listening on this call, do this, man. If you have, you have to continue to work to make sure your company reflects the community they serve. So even if you have 1 or 2 people of color in the room and you're still working towards increasing that pool, before starting the meeting, it takes 15 seconds to do just a quick quality check. When you know something that has made national headlines and maybe impacting the person of color experience may be different than yours, just to simply just say, hey Eric, how you doing, man? I know it's a lot going on. Just want to let you know we here with you. And then get into the agenda items of whatever meeting you have, versus continuing every single meeting as if mayhem isn't happening at our doorstep every single day, being Black in America. And so it's little small things like that as leaders, as corporations, as businesses, organizations that you can do that will go a long way. We are people that don't ask for much. We don't even require much. But that little check-in will go a long way with the morale, with the culture of the company. And it's leaders that can be intent with the small details like that will be the most effective and get the most out of their workers.
Chris, if I can add to that, is if you're going to bring it up, be authentic about it, because you can sniff out fake. So if you're gonna bring it up, be real about it.
That's really good feedback.
I agree, Eric.
Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted one example I wanted to share about the work equality. If you heard of Michigan Turkey here in Grand Rapids, I have to give them much props, because Michigan Turkey has done it right when it comes to diverse work pool. They have one of the most diverse work groups in Grand Rapids, period. And I appreciate that, because they even make sure that they have interpreters to interpret different languages, because they have, I think they spoke and said they have at least over 30 different languages at the company, but they have individuals there who wear certain hats who does the interpretation, so everybody won't feel so, separated. So that's a good example of what people should follow as far as having different verses of ethnicities working at your company or your business. Look at their example, because I think they're leading the way in that. I give them props.
Piggyback off of that, Conrad, and what both Eric and Chris, you guys had said, it kind of digs into the next question. But not only having a diverse workforce from a racial standpoint, but also gender and, people have got backgrounds in equality. The other important thing is not just your workforce. So we need to figure out how we can promote more people of color to work their way up to the top of organizations. So this question kind of, I guess, parallels that last one, but how can employers do that? And how can community members make sure that we're intentional to not be the only people at the table? So oftentimes I'm on meetings, I'm on boards, and, the majority is white people when we're serving a Black or brown or a diverse community. So how can we encourage white people to open their eyes and possibly, the minority community to want to be sitting at the table?
I will say the key word you had there, Sarah, is intentionality. If we believe that those things just are going to happen, it's just going to organically happen. Well, we've been believing that for several hundred years now. When we think about that and have no intentional initiatives to say, here's how we're going to get to that. So Conrad is spot on with Michigan Turkey. Cascade Engineering is very focused on how they've done that work. There's incredible work having been done at St. Mary's Hospital when Bill Manns was here in town as president, where it was intentional on let's get rid of, and that was, I think, when you talk about St. Mary's, the idea was was simple yet heavy lift, and they did it, which was how do we erase bias out of the hiring process? How do we truly get bias out? And so in the framework they created, it was focused on, if you ask Bill, he'll tell you, it was about getting bias. He didn't say, I'm going to diversify our workforce. He said, I'm getting bias out of the process, but consequently, the number of people of color that were hired went up by several percentage points, from like about 10, 15% over 30% of their workforce. And so making sure that those kind of steps, and that's a policy thing. That's policy. That's saying we're changing how we do things. And if you have that boldness for that policy work, that's the intentionality that we're talking about.
I have a friend in Kalamazoo who's a doctor, and just last week, she had a meeting with her supervisors, an executive meeting, and they never really had this kind of conversation with her about black and white within their own company. So they were kind of surprised to hear her speak. And I think one of the things that may have to be done when it comes to, those leaders is they have to give a voice to the people. She's been working at that company and as a doctor, very, very, we talking about astute. And they never really heard her voice. So now they put her in a position to be on the executive board because they never had that voice. You have to give people that opportunity too, because the people are there. They can be right in your nose.
So I'll piggyback right off Dr. Pink and Conrad, but I'll give a huge shout out to Jamil Robertson from the Grand Rapids business. He put something out there yesterday, and it made it prevalent to all African Americans. There was a fund given out, to the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce, $25 million. $25 million. I like everybody who's live and everything to sum that up, and who's on the panel, $25 million. They gave those funds to the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce to distribute to Black African American businesses. They didn't once come to us and say, hey, do you guys have a fiduciary who can at least take $5 million of these funds to be distributed to African American businesses? So when you think about that from an operating cost perspective, that money is important to us because we want to be in control of how we distribute and how we can help our community, firsthand. So that's one of the financial disparities that we haven't been given an opportunity for years. I can't tell you here within West Michigan, there's several Black businesses. There's several Black businesses. And you're telling me we don't have the platform and the people in place to handle $5 million of those funds? That's absurd. Yeah. That's where we're starting at. And our leaders of today, the people who have the larger platforms, I think that's where we need to stand up and be like, that's unacceptable. Yep. That's unacceptable. If we continue to accept that, then we continue to get the same results. And we will not have those prominent African Americans at the boardroom and at the table to say, hey, I want to lead the change with you. Because you guys aren't financially giving us that extra push like you're giving it to other organizations. $25 million, not even a quarter or a fourth of that money, saying, oh, well, here's $5 million. Let's give it to, the Urban League, who can be the fiduciary to distribute these funds, or Grand Rapids Black Business to distribute these funds. But you guys are continuing to keep us in this close-knit circle where you're saying, we're going to distribute the funds for you. When do we become prominent to you guys? When are we? If you guys can't give us the money to actually become prominent, then we're nothing. So with that being said is, it's time for you guys to let go and let us in. Let us in, and then we'll come to the table with some of those, you know what I mean, intelligent and smart leaders that can help us lead for today and in the future.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hear your passion for sure. We are at time, and so I want to wrap up here. And I love hearing all of your voices and everything you guys are saying. I really think that this dialogue was really beneficial. We're going to have hopefully this video exported and on our website, as well as each of your individual clips should be on our website by Monday. I would really like to close in number one, if we can I don't want to say stop, but if we can work to change our vocabulary to speak to we have to come together. We have got to not be black and white. We have to be together. We got to come together. We got to make decisions together. And I really want to speak directly to our leaders and our employers in our community. It's going to start with us. It's going to start with us continuing to talk, to be uncomfortable, to, like Chris had said, if, you know, a situation has happened, to not ignore it, to address that Black lives do matter, and just make sure we're being intentional of bringing a community together, not apart. So yeah, I pray that we can continue these discussions and dialogues, and thank you guys all, Eric, Conrad, Marquise, and Chris and Bill. We really appreciate your time and your stories. I pray that everybody was able to hear your message.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Courtney, any other closing things?
Thank you, guys.
I want to respect your time, but again, I am super grateful and I'm excited for the next one. We're going to keep it going.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Everyone have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
See you.